Well, our next guest says with Asia firmly on its recovery track, central banks in the region may soon move to tighten their monetary policy. She believes that South Korea will raise its interest rates first, probably in the first quarter of next year, followed by India and Singapore. Johanna Chua is Chief Regional Economist at Citi, joining us now live from Hong Kong. Johanna, great to have you with us today. Let me ask you if you think South Korea will be first, looking at sort of the first quarter in next year. Where does Australia fit into that picture?
Well, Australia is probably going to be earlier than the rest of Asia. We are actually calling for Australia to hike us by end of this year. But Korea will then be the first one in the Asia Pacific, following in as early as maybe January.
Do you think Korea will wait for Australia to go first?
Yes, I think so. I mean, I think there's still a very big debate about when BOK will tighten. Certainly, BOK has started to sound quite hawkish. However, we think they're going to hold off early tightening, given that there are still lingering concerns about the durability of the recovery. Yesterday's inflation number out of Korea was actually lower than expected. And I think the last thing Korea wants to do is to, further exacerbate the sharp appreciation in the won, which is already which is already happening over the last couple of weeks.
It certainly is an interesting currency. We've been watching that over the course of cash flow today. Johanna, let me ask you about your overall view in terms of the economic recovery. You're looking at a V-shaped recovery, but thinks that the pace of growth is going to start to slow somewhat going through into 2010.
Yes, we do expect that basically the cyclical countries in Asia have a V-shaped recovery, and that's now starting to be probably less steep of a V-shape than what we saw in the second quarter, but still a clear upturn. And the more domestic demand-driven economies like China, India, Indonesia will continue to have a sustainable recovery going forward. But having said that, we do think central banks, although they are probably going to tighten ahead of the Fed in Asia, we do think they're going to tighten a little slower than what market is expecting, given that, for three reasons. People are worried about the durability of the recovery. The second, people are worried about exacerbating the currency appreciation pressures if they hike very aggressively. And third, I think, another form of policy tightening is not just by interest rate hikes. You could do other liquidity management measures, such as in India, we're expecting reserve requirement hikes, or you can see more currency appreciation as another form of policy tightening alongside interest rate adjustments.
Well, Johanna, let's talk about macro strategy based on your overall view then for a recovery in the Asian region. Bullish Asia FX?
Yes. Our favorite currencies now in Asia is the Korean won, INR, IDR. I think it's quite remarkable that, it's this whole risk asset rally since Lehman collapsed. If you look at a lot of asset prices in Asia, whether you look at equity indices, credit spreads, even property prices, external liquidity ratios, we are now back to, pre-Lehman levels. We're even stronger than pre-Lehman. And yet, Asian FX on a nominal effective exchange rate basis has actually still lagged and is still weaker since pre-Lehman. And I think that is where there's an opportunity for a catch-up. We think Korean won is probably the cheapest currency in Asia. And the other two currencies we're watching out for is INR and IDR, because these two economies are less export dependent, and therefore they're more domestic demand driven. And second, as inflation pressures start picking up, the sort of risk reward of letting the currency appreciate will probably be in favor of a little bit more currency strength from here.
All right. Okay, Johanna, we're out of time. Thank you so much for joining us today here on Cash Flow. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. Johanna Chua from Citi.